You need it?
Okay.
Okay. Yep. Yeah.
All right, before we get this shindig going here, Ed actually has something for real, serious to say to all you people before we get started. So, here he is.
Uh-oh. Hey, thanks. Before I become paralyzed with rage and embarrassment here, no, I just want to say, and I was going to try to get this out in the convention earlier on the weekend, and kind of a serious note about an old friend of mine, my old mentor and sidekick and hellraiser Zico, and just had a second stroke about a week ago. He had a stroke about a year back, and he got kind of bounced back from it. He's been tattooing, but this one hit him harder, and he's understandably pretty depressed and very upset, and he doesn't think that he's going to be able to tattoo again. I talked to him, I don't know, a couple days before I rolled over here. And I'm just trying to think of a way. I promised him that I would put the word out here. If anybody had any ideas or support of ways that he could make some dough, he can still draw and paint. He just doesn't think he can tattoo. And I suggested maybe he could do some flash, like what Mike Malone was doing a number of years ago, small, individual things that he could, sign and one thing and another. So anyway, if you check the TattooCitySF.com website, within the next, hopefully, month or so, we'll get some information up about it, and I just want to put the word out. A lot of you people know Zeke, or at least hopefully know who he is, and he's made great contributions to tattooing, so, whatever we can do for the guy, because, of course, he's led a lusty life and made a lot of dough and blew all of it as he went along, so he needs to figure out a way to help take care of himself now. So that's it, and now I'll turn this over to my esteemed colleague, I think, Jack Rudy.
Excuse me? No. Oh. Yes. Well, I guess it's that time again. Another year, another roast. And here we are, all gathered. God, what a crowd. What a crowd. What did I tell you? Give yourselves a big hand. That's great. I haven't seen as many people since they all walked out at my roast. Well, I'll tell you. Okay, first up on the list is a guy that I don't know very well, and I don't think many other of you guys know or give a shit about this guy either. Because, any friend of Ed has got to be a real asshole. Sorry. But so anyway, ladies and gentlemen, hey, wait a second. Just, who the fuck are you? I didn't think Bill Salmon made it. So anyway, here he is, folks, Scott Harry Scrum. sorry, that's Scott Harrison. Scott Harrison.
Excuse me, it's going to take a minute. I have a lot of equipment.
Oh, yeah. That's not what your wife tells us.
Oh, now, man. Okay, kids. Hang on one second here. Okay. First of all...
Hello.
Okay. Sorry. Not well timed. I promised I would do Gallagher. First of all,
I want you to know, I didn't come to roast Ed Hardy. I came to toast him. I'm not going to get involved in the kind of mudslinging that you goyim seem to enjoy. And also, first of all, I want to say, I honestly, it's an incredible honor to be up here on stage with some of the greatest tattooers of our time. The entire cast of Miami Inc. Oh, snap! You guys aren't America's sweethearts. Well, if it's any consolation, I'm sure somewhere in Miami there's a very similar table with a bunch of similar characters sitting at it, but they're all waiting for their second helpings of creamed corn and strained peas. Okay. Sorry, I'm not a very good reader, and there's no light up here, but, the way this whole thing started, I remember, Mike Malone couldn't be here, so I thought I'd start with a little reminiscence, and it really kind of keyed into this whole thing. One day I was staying with him and Keith Underwood in Minneapolis, and it was early in the morning. I was just sitting on the couch by myself watching cartoons and eating a bowl of cereal or something, and watching TV, and Malone kind of comes lumbering up from his den in the basement. You hear it's like one step at a time. And a rest. Couple puffs off the cigar. And as soon as he gets to the top of the stairs, before he even gets anywhere near me, I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, "You think Ed Hardy's your friend? He's not your friend. If he's letting you hang around because he wants something from you." And at the time, I found it very confusing. I was just like, "Good morning, Rollo. I really can't see what Ed would want from me. I don't really have anything." And he said, "You'll see." And tonight, I see what he was talking about. So, here we are. This is what he was keeping me around for. Anyways, and on that subject of keeping me around and what he wants me for, I have to apologize for wearing these cheap Chinatown knockoffs that I'm wearing. I had intended to buy the real Ed Hardy gear, but, I talked to my mortgage broker, and he wouldn't let me refinance my house after the belt thing last year. Oh, yeah, and hang on, as far as speaking of my duties here, hang on one second. I know Carrot Top's a lot smoother and more buff. But yeah, I'm afraid, I hate to be the guy who has to do this, but, Bob Baxter asked me to bring these by.
Oh, shit.
So if you could just kind of put your stuff together and pack and give me the keys to the Pope Mobile on the way out, I think it'll all go better for all of us. And on that note, we were thinking about it, and we decided, well, if you ever decide that you want to take tattooing seriously and start to actually contribute something to the art instead of parasitically feeding off the contributions of others, we thought we got some basic equipment here for the 21st century tattooist that will help you get in the mags, kind of build your reputation. And I mean real magazines, not those vanity press zines you were doing in the 80s. Actually, Jeff Baker, if you're in the house, you left this in my room. I figured anyone who would get that is either dead or in prison. Okay, first essential piece of equipment for the 21st century tattooist is black metal corpse paint. What else I got? They're in here somewhere. Mystical Norn ears for channeling the spirit of Loki in the Shire.
Sorry, kids, not very smooth. There we go.
This actually is just for posing for photographs in Golden Gate Park. And last, the single most essential piece of equipment for any budding tattooista. A skateboard. Thank you. Those are just rented. I need those back. Okay, and you know, honestly, when Ed asked me to do the roast, I told him that I didn't really feel right about it. I've known him for over 15 years, and in that whole time, he's been nothing but a great and generous friend. And he was incredibly generous to me when I started my career as a poor, talentless young apprentice, and has been consistently so all through my career path to the present as a poor, talentless, middle-aged armband specialist. And honestly, he was more down to earth and generous than any other tattooer I have met of any age or status. Seriously, and in the whole time I've known him, I've never seen him behave in an ungentlemanly way other than being mean to Shotzi at Lyle's roast. And I really didn't feel right about slagging him in public. And honestly, if that wasn't true, I sure as hell wouldn't be up in front of you motherfuckers acting the fool. Anyways, to move on. So, and as I look around the table here, you know, I see he's obviously loaded the deck in favor of himself. And really the only person here who should have a real axe to grind with him will be Lyle. You know, I mean, honestly, if any tattooer were to get their own energy drink, obviously it should have been Tuttle. I mean, he's been making his own energy drink for years. I mean, come on, it's just like, I can't hold a candle to him. And, you know, I realize we're supposed to like roast some of the other roasters. That's kind of the thing. But I don't really know these folks very well at all. The only one I sort of know, I kind of know Chuck Eldridge, and you know, insulting Chuck is kind of like giving Gandhi a wedgie. And I'm just not really ready for that karma. You know, but Jack, of course, I've met many times, although I don't know him well. You know, because whenever Ed's not around, I can't seem to catch his eye. The good one or the other one. And you know, he's always at these conventions, and he's always standing next to a guy that looks like he stepped out of a Dave Mann painting. This guy he's standing next to doesn't have any trouble making eye contact. This guy is looking at me like I just walked into a David Allan Coe concert with my yarmulke on. And he's doing these mental calculations. And what he's calculating is like, can he snap my neck with just his thumb and pinky? Or is he also going to need to use his ring finger? Either way, it doesn't really make me want to jump up and down and say, "Hi, Jack. Remember me? I'm a Jewish friend." So, at first, you know, I thought, well, you know, he's snubbing me. He's obviously an anti-Semite. I realized, you know, at these conventions, there's all these kids around, and they're doing all these tattoos, and they're all trying to impress him and stuff, and it's really probably just insecurity about the size of his needle. Okay. Moving right along. And what else we got here? Oh, and Leo was a big surprise. There he is. I did not know that Leo was going to be on the panel tonight. So I honestly, I really would have prepared like a 10-page essay. You know, thanking him, of course, for condemning me to spending the rest of my life in the armpits of middle-aged wrestling fans. Just a little historical note, Goldberg is actually not a Jew. Strangely enough. But anyways, as I was saying, I've got nothing but good feelings toward it, and I thought, well, I'll just go on first. I'm sure these guys have plenty of dirt on the guy, but like I said, Ed's been nothing but good to me. And I'll just go on first, and my bit will be the Ed Hardy toast before the actual roast. So I think we'll do a little toast. You know, so I thought that, and then I started thinking, wait a minute. You know, despite my personal affection for the guy, this is the motherfucker that ruined tattooing. Like, what the fuck? I mean, I just spent 3 days hanging around with all these old guys talking about the days when tattooing, and some of you younger kids may not know this, but it used to be a profession in which a heterosexual man could work and retain a bit of dignity. Apparently, in the old days. I think if we're going to lay it at anyone's door, we know where to lay it. I mean, this guy, who I love, obviously, and I would never say anything bad about him. I mean, he's the Pat Boone of tattooing. I mean, this is the guy that let the fucking squares in. He took this marginal, weird faux art, and he put a sweater vest on it, and paraded it around for the NPR crowd. And even worse, and if any of you guys are taking notes, I'm going to enunciate very clearly, because this is the part where you're all going to be sort of dogging me on MySpace. Even worse, and this is the worst, it's his, look at me, ma, hot dog surfer antics that opened the door for the hot dog skateboarder artistes of today. So instead of falling and banging their nuts on a banister when they overreach their abilities, they just slather people's backs with failed attempts at the latest tattoo trick. I sound like George Bush, and now I have a complete sympathy for him. And okay, another thing. A wonderful guy, puts out some great books, but I didn't quite understand why you need to start your autobiography with 70 pages of childhood finger paintings. Which, some of his best work, granted. But if you're going to start that way, you don't end by giving shout-outs to Rembrandt and Uccello. I mean, that's balls. I mean, I'm sure they're quite honored. You know, I can see them up in heaven, floating on a cloud, see those horrible fucking cherubs floating around. Although, there's also a little known fact. In heaven, all cherubs aren't floating on patches of razor burn and ingrown pubic hairs. In heaven, it's just clouds. And this next part, you're going to have to put an Italian accent in there. I've been working on it for a week, and it inevitably ends up sounding like a French guy with Down syndrome. So, Uccello says to Rembrandt, Rembrandt, come over here. Eddie gave us a shout-out. He's the one with the sublime priapic hot stuff. With the delicate green boogers running. Nice yellow highlight. Magnifico. A monument to the human spirit. If only Michelangelo could have seen it before he carved his Pietà. Beautiful. Although, to be fair, honestly, I don't think the excess of juvenilia in that book was due to Ed's egotism entirely. I mean, partially, I think he just wanted to reassure all of us customers of his that his lines were always that scratchy. Okay, so that's it. I would like to conclude my toast. Oh, I need to do some AV stuff here, so maybe I should ad-lib with some kind of... oh, no, it worked. Okay, hang on 1 second, kids. Carrot Top would have a sound man. There'd be a guy in like a black hood running around and doing all this stuff for him. So I'm going to end, and we're going to toast at the end. If any of you have glasses, you might want to prepare them. And I'm going to start with a reading from Ed's pivotal, classic, proto-Miami Ink manifesto, Tattoo Magic. Those of you who have crystals, anyone came up from Portland, I'm sure you all know. You can hold on to those and channel the power. The increasing communication between artist and client. Personalization of tattoos is getting back to the art's roots. The more that people with the urge to be tattooed can develop a satisfying personal badge by rapport with artists skilled in interpreting a client's wishes, the more the quality of the practice will rise. The Aztecs believed that the body was the tomb of the soul, and some of us are motivated to embellish the sarcophagus with marks of the spark that moves the mate. The pictures of this mumbo-jumbo suit might only be epidermal placebos. But if they make us feel better about ourselves, and by extension, the others around us, the magic works. We are wearing our dreams. Thanks, Ed.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that was Scott Harrison. Keep your day job, Scott. Thank you. Okay, our next roaster is yet another pioneer in his chosen field of tattooing. He introduced one of the first new styles to come along since electric tattooing began. But you guys already know enough about Good Time Charlie, because the guy I'm talking about is one of the greatest around, as long as you like that tribal bullshit. That's right, I'm talking about your pal and mine, Leo Zulueta.
Yeah!
Hi everybody. Man, how can I top that? Wow. Boy, I have to go next after Scott. Thank you. First, I'd like to say thank you, Flo, Don, National Tattoo Association for having me. And of course, Ed. I feel greatly indebted for Ed for everything he's done for me. He's the guy that got me in tattooing. He saw that I had a vision in tattooing, and he totally did everything. And I owe a great debt to Ed Hardy. And I'd like to reminisce a little about Ed. He actually tricked me into the business. Chuck Eldridge was organizing some art shows at Dean Dennis's in the late 70s, early 80s. And Ed convinced me to have an art show there. I was studying I was trying to amass as much information on tribal tattooing as I could at that time in the 70s in San Francisco. And Ed knew that, and he said, well, you know, drop some of that Borneo stuff and have a show at Dean Dennis's tattoo headquarters on Broadway in Montgomery in San Francisco. And Chuck, as I say, was organizing those shows. And Ed, of course, was very supportive and said, Leo, you should have a show over there, you know, talk to Chuck and Dean and them. And so I got a show. And during the opening of the show, Ed says, hey, Leo, you want to put one of those designs on yourself? And I'm like, I never wanted to be a tattooist. And I just really, you know, as a child, I knew I was going to get tattooed someday. And so he said, do that, you know. And I'm like, cool, I'll do that. So I ran one of those on my back of my calf at Realistic. And during that session, Ed's like, well, why don't you tattoo some of your friends and stuff, you know? Some of the guys you ride bikes with and your punk rock friends and stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's a novel idea. I'll do that, you know, I'll get into that. So I did some, you know, he'd loan me his shop when he was out of town to do the tattoos, of course. And he basically, I feel, kind of tricked me into the business, you know? I think that's kind of funny. Thank you very much, Ed, you know? And another funny story, reminiscing, is when Ed bought Charlie's shop in East Los Angeles. Ed came up with this funny idea. Of course, Ed's got this great sense of humor. He said, you know those fiberglass Paul Bunyan statues they used to have around the, I don't know what kind of businesses, but Ed was going to try to find one of those and then totally tattoo it all out, you know, sleeve it out and put it in front of the shop in East Los Angeles. You know, we all thought that was just like the funniest thing on the planet, you know. I mean, he's always just been a really funny guy. And so, you know, again, after Scott, boy, how can I top that? You know? But I'd like to thank Ed, of course, for everything. I've been tattooing 25 years now. Ed, again, he really saw something in me and, you know, basically launched me into the tattoo world, you know, from day one. And it's been a wonderful experience for me these last 25 years. And Ed's just great, you know. I'm having a hard time up here really saying, you know, trying to poke fun at Ed. I dressed up like Ed. That was my way. I used to, you know, talk to him about it. I'd say, Ed, you know, what's up with that professor sweater and stuff? He'd say, Leo, George Burchett would wear a lab coat to work, you know. So, okay. But thank you very much, and thank you, Ed.
Well, okay. On to our next roaster. He is also a man that you all know and love. But seriously, he really is a man of very few words. So, tell you what I'm going to do here. We're going to make this easy on him, and I'm going to kind of interview him. And I'm going to ask a series of hard-hitting questions, and of course he will answer them to the best of his ability. And I'm talking about none other than the man you all know and love, Mike Brown.
There you go. All right, yeah, we'll do it like that.
All right. So, Mike, you've known Ed a very, very long time. In fact, you've known him so long, more than most of us. Did you ever believe in your wildest dreams that old cheapskate Hardy would ever enjoy the kind of fame and success that he has achieved so far? Nope. Thanks, Mike. Thank you. Then let me ask you this one. How about this one? I'll tell you. All right. Did you ever, let me ask you this. Did you ever think that Ed would be up here one day in the hot seat, getting his ass verbally kicked sometime in the future, like today, for example? Yep. All right, okay, that's good, Mike. You're rolling. You got it now. How about this one? Do you think that Ed... Yes. Do you think that Ed will have lasting good fortune in all of his future endeavors? Nope. All right, then. Well, let me ask you this, then. Do you think this whole thing is just a bunch of horse shit? And would you rather be at home right now rearranging your sock drawer? Yep. Well, there you have it, folks. Honest answers from the man of few words. And, let's remember that old proverb, too, that I think it's something like, it is better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to open one's mouth and remove all doubt. Okay. All right. Our next roaster. Well, now here's a guy I just couldn't really talk any shit about at all because there's really just nothing bad you can say about this guy. And no, I'm not talking about that old fart child Regina. Because there's plenty of shit you can say about that stew bomb. No, I'm talking about the man, the myth, the legend, the guy we all love, Good Time Charlie Cartwright.
Thanks for having me. Well, as you know, I'm not much of a conventioneer, if you are one. But, well, I've always made it a habit not to ever go to a roast. And I've even been quoted as saying I wouldn't attend my own. And I actually told Ed I didn't come here for his. I came here to see Mike Malone. God bless Mike Malone. Well, good evening, ladies and germs. Let's put my glasses on here. We've gathered here tonight to entertain ourselves by laughing at others' expense. Should we laugh at the expense of others? Nay, I say. Rather preferring others before yourself and lifting up instead of putting down. If you have your Bible, turn with me. Well, I'll just read it for you. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, your neighbor. So that being said, I would now like to lift up or elevate your Royal Highness to the highly sought after title the highly sought after title of Grand Poobah of tattoo buffoonery by crowning you and handing you the scepter to keep the masses in line. With your very own Ed Hardy brand on the world. I think I said it
Great job, Charlie. Great job. Well, I'll tell you, all that was good. And so, moving right along, our next roaster is yet another very well-liked tattooer. But in addition to very well-liked tattooer, he's also a historian, author, playwright, bon vivant, lecturer, adventurer, philanthropist, polygamist, sociopath, curator, neurologist, pedophile, and woodworker. Who writes this? Oh, and all around general jerk-off. I'm talking about your pal and mine, Chuck Eldridge.
Well, thank you, folks. It's a pleasure to be here. I think we've all enjoyed a great weekend here, and I think we are growing to understand why National Tattoo Association puts on the best conventions and has the best atmosphere. And I'm like a lot of these people here, the sense of humor of a roast never quite appealed to me, so I prepared a little ditty about Ed Hardy.
A little ditty?
A little ditty. Don Ed Hardy was a quiet boy whose life ambition was such a joy. To surf the waves until he dropped, and surf some more, and sketch a lot. And then one day, while on a hike, he found himself upon the pike. Bert Grimm's tattooing, the sign did say, and the young Don Ed was on his way. Uncle Bert was the friendliest of them all. Ed copied his designs from the wall. A budding tattooer was born that day, and Don Ed, the tattooist, was on his way. Phil Sparrow, you know, was the man of the hour, whose Japanese books Don Ed did devour. Ed will always remember that fateful day that this Oakland tattooist showed him the way. Zeke Owens, a legend, tattooed in Seattle. Ed was left to work alone when Zeke went to do battle. Hardy was green, but he did the best that he was able, and a piece of good luck brought him to Doc Webb's table. Off to Japan, Don Ed did go. He worked with Agori, one of the stars of the show. Ed learned from the masters, he learned from the best, and then returned to the States to begin his tattooing quest. Of course, Sailor Jerry was on that list. Jerry blended the East and the West with a unique twist. Sailor Jerry's legacy still remains today, thanks to Hardy and Malone for bringing him our way. The 70s saw the birth of realistic tattoo, an appointment-only shop on Frisco's Van Ness Avenue. It showcased artists like Roberts, Salmon, and the elusive Tomei, and Don Ed, the tattoo shop owner, was on his way. Good Time Charlie and Rudy inspired Ed to take his art higher. They said black and gray was the look. Of this you won't tire. But alas, Tattoo City, it burnt to the ground, and what is lost in life can never be found. In 1982, Triple E Productions put on the Queen Mary Convention, a tattoo show that was way too cool to mention. It was here that Tattoo Time first saw the light of day, and the tattoo world was shown the way. Tattoo designs and pop culture are hot, especially when Don Ed Hardy is stirring the pot. The clothing promoters lined up at the door with a promise of royalty checks galore. And so here's my story for you, good friend Ed. You're one of the greatest tattooists, but it never went to your head. I love you dearly, you have my respect, and I thank the tattoo gods for the day that we met.